Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Flame, Ash, Time in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 61, Legacy. This is it, Hubert announces as the Black Eagles stand before a wide blast door. Governor Aguirre's panic room sits in the direct center of the uppermost floor of Fort Mercers. Bodies of enforcers litter the area as the Eagles catch their breath. What awaits us on the other side, Hubert? Edelgard questions. Nothing of great import, he answers. A few elite guards and, of course, Ludwig himself. It is nothing that will not crumble before us. What are we waiting for? Claude asks impatiently. Let's capture him and be done with it. It doesn't take significant effort for them to open the blast door. Hubert splatters the surface of the entryway with a Mire spell, the dark liquid of which eats through the metal quite hungrily. Edelgard then swings her axe into the degrading steel with all her might. With a ferocious squeal, the door splits in half, and each section wrinkles forward. Inside, a few guards already have their weapons drawn. Governor Ludwig von Aguirre stands behind them with a hollow shield firm in his grip. He extends his other arm, no doubt for casting a spell. Off to his side, his son stands like a knight of old, vibro lance in one hand, hollow shield in the other. Stay back. Ludwig stutters. Enemies of the Empire are fated for death. Hubert forebodingly chuckles. Come now, Governor. You don't honestly expect to defeat us, do you? Ludwig's face twists and turns to a furious red. Hubert. You traitorous, spineless cur. You throw your lot in with these parasites. Hubert lets out a full cackle, slightly disturbing everyone in the room. How amusing. To be called both traitor and spineless by you, of all people. Tell me, Governor, do you truly lack that much self-awareness? Are you not currently hiding in a panic room amidst a war that has already claimed your home territory? Are you not the main conspirator in the insurrection of the Seven? Hubert, Ferdinand softly murmurs. So that's what this was about. Ludwig shakes. It was some long-con punishment for what happened years ago? I won't be scolded by you, boy. I'll admit, Hubert sneers, you were at least useful. Until you weren't. Ludwig von Aguirre. Edelgard interrupts. For your many crimes against Fodlan and her people, the United Revolutionary Army hereby takes you into custody. Hresvelghor. Ludwig screams. He extends his arm forward, mentally preparing a spell. Thal's men should have made certain your line was all dead. That's what they promised. I'll kill you myself if I have to. Edelgard sighs and readies her shield. Runes begin to form around Ludwig, but before anyone else can react, the point of a lance tears through his spell-casting shoulder. The man squeals in pain as spittle leaks from his mouth. Ferdinand then shoves his father forward onto the floor. I'm sorry, father, he somberly states with his brow furrowed, but your desires no longer align with Fodlan's best interests. It disgusts me to say that you've become everything I was taught to condemn in a leader. You betray me, too, whelp. Ludwig writhes as he tries to scamper to his feet. Hubert interjects, keep squirming like the pig you are. This is the end of your reign. Ludwig picks his shield back up, you. Edelgard interrupts him by lifting him by his collar, causing him to again drop his shield. His guards start to lunge for her, but Ferdinand quickly steps in the way as Hubert orders them to stand down. Ludwig, she glares coldly into his eyes, I am losing my patience with you. Recall, please, how you destroyed my family. Do you not suspect that every fiber of my being presently wishes to pop your enormous head like a bloody grape? Or to hand you over to Hubert so that he may torture you for information, then torture you simply for entertainment? The longer you draw this out, the less I will be able to restrain myself from rendering your corpse unrecognizable. Slowly. The Flame Emperor drops the man, and he gawks up at her. Don't kill me. Please. I'll come quietly. Hubert scoffs. Humph. In another world, you might have at least had the dignity to let your son be the one to end you. Hubert. Ferdinand barks. Please, this is hard enough as it is. My apologies. Hubert slightly bows, but eliminating this man, one way, or the other, is in the greater interest of all Fodlan. Restrain him, Edelgard orders her forces as Aguirre's guards awkwardly stand aside. Ferdinand, thank you for your cooperation. Please order the rest of your father's forces to stand down. Of course, Ferdinand sorrowfully nods. Edelgard patrols around the outside of Fort Mercers, taking stock of the dead and wounded. Improvised tents for medical treatment and barracks pepper the valley outside of the structure, giving cleanup crews enough time and berth to cleanse the fortress halls of corpses. She seeks out the tent demarcated for the Black Eagle strike force, knowing full well that Mercedes is already keeping herself distracted with medical work. Edelgard can't say that she blames the good doctor. Being productive is a strategy the two of them share when they deal with their grief. Inside the tent, Edelgard finds Byleth sitting on a table as Mercedes runs healing magic over her. She notices the Ashen Empress armor piled in a corner as the Blunet is stripped down to a bra and her bodysuit leggings, revealing a series of red and purple bruises covering her well-defined torso, arms, and face. Edelgard winces at the sight. Please stop facing dragons on your own, the Flame Emperor scolds Byleth. Byleth simply shakes her head, the rest of you were busy fighting the battle. And most of the others are too squishy to take on a dragon. I think she was very brave, Mercedes interjects. Fighting dragons sounds like something a dashing hero would do in a storybook. Edelgard loves her surrogate sister dearly, but she can't help the fleeting and petty twinge of jealousy that pricks her chest when she notices the doctor's faint blush as she heals Byleth, subtly eyeing over the Empress. Byleth, of course, seems completely oblivious, merely sitting in her underwear in utter innocence. Then again, she can't really blame Mercedes for being impressed with Byleth's physique. She, herself, has to maintain decorum and not gawk at the woman whose taut muscles and generous curves currently leave little to the imagination. All done, Mercedes' sweet voice shakes her from her thoughts. Thank you, Byleth says as she hops down from the table and starts getting dressed. Mercedes, Edelgard begins, if you need to tall. Now, the doctor interrupts, I'm off to see who else needs healing. If you need something, I'll be checking out the Golden Deer next. Mercedes quickly scurries off with a case full of medical tools and a strained smile. Edelgard sighs as she turns to Byleth. You were surprisingly unembarrassed to be undressed around Mercedes, she states. I trust her not to be weird. In the old world, Manuela would always make comments about my appearance whenever she examined me. Don't get me wrong, I cared about her a lot, just like everyone else. She just seemed a bit jealous at my lack of aging. Edelgard suddenly feels a pang of guilt course through her. You knew Manuela? She was one of the drama professors at UAH as well as Dorothea's old mentor. Byleth nods, I never really got to know her in this world. Different departments and all that. But we worked together a lot more closely in the old world. I suppose she's still teaching, isn't she? Last I checked, Byleth answers. Edelgard, they hear a boisterous voice call from outside the tent. Not a moment later, Ferdinand pushes aside the tent flap as he enters, Hubert trailing behind him. We must speak of Adrestia's future, he bellows. My apologies, Lady Edelgard, Hubert bows to her. This one was rather insistent on bringing this up here and now, against my advice. It's all right, Hubert, she chuckles. Speak, Ferdinand. Please. Hold a moment, he stutters. I did not realize you had company. He turns to Byleth, I am Ferdinand von Aegir. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Byleth grins, I'm Byleth. Just Byleth. I recognize that armor, Hubert squints. You must be the Ashen Demon. The Ashen Empress, Edelgard corrects. And she is my fiancée. Byleth blushes as she awkwardly shifts around, while Hubert is for once stunned into silence. Spectacular, Ferdinand gapes. You are not at all what I imagined based on the stories. How fascinating. Hubert elbows Ferdinand's side, focus. Right, Ferdinand nods. Anyway, Edelgard, I wish to discuss my position and your plans for Fodlan. I no longer doubt the necessity of removing Nemesis and Thales from power, but I must know your strategy for balancing the world if you are to have my full support. Edelgard shakes her head, I greatly appreciate and respect your query. First of all, my ambition does not extend to the whole world, merely Fodlan. I am hoping to stamp out that false assumption once I am in power. I leave the other regions of the world to their rightful rulers. Secondly, I plan on providing more resources to the public so that anyone may rise or fall by their own merit. One's fate cannot be tied to their station of birth or their cooperation with the military in power. Authority will not be determined by agenda nor lineage. How intriguing. Ferdinand nods his head. My father had informed me that you intend to grant only your allies power, and that you surround yourself with yes men. On the contrary, Edelgard smiles. I need people like you who have a fresh perspective and will question me with new views and ideas. Though there is some truth in what your father says, but only to the extent that the first generation of rulers post-war will be people I can trust. One of my ambitions is to transition Fodlan away from its old ways, not destabilize everything all at once, though I have seen others claim that my object is otherwise. There will soon be a day when Fodlan decides her rulers for herself. Beyond choosing a successor I can depend upon, I will not have input on future matters of state as I plan on abdicating. After my reforms are generally complete, of course. Ferdinand cocks his head. You do not plan on keeping the throne. Edelgard chortles, no. For less than a second, a piercing lavender light bleeds through the thin walls of the tent. Then a split instant later, everything lights up brighter than any daytime. The whole earth shakes as the world deafens from a hideously shrill rumbling. Everyone is carried off their feet as the tent blasts away as easily as a bored child blows away dust. Edelgard doesn't register landing on her back, nor is she aware of how much time passes when her eyes finally open. She only regains most of her sensory details as she stumbles to her feet. The grass below her has been overhauled with dirt. The only thing she hears past the ringing in her ears is Byleth calling her name. Edelgard struggles to maintain her balance when she suddenly feels Byleth's arms around her shoulders, keeping her stable. She scans around through the newly formed clouds of dust. Revolutionaries either struggle to their feet, sit in the dirt, or have completely fainted. Tents and equipment have all been blasted around as those who have regained their bearings run around in a panic as they check on others. She sees Hubert helping Ferdinand to his feet as they shout something at each other. Both of their formerly pristine suits are now covered in dirt and something else. Ash? Edelgard. Byleth shouts one last time. She turns to look her fiancé in the eyes, still disoriented. Byleth, what happened? What? Stay on me, she says as she puts her arm around Edelgard, helping her keep her balance. It was a javelin strike. It is then that Edelgard looks to the sky above Fort Mercers. The outer perimeter of the structure remains intact. However, an ocean of curling smoke dotted with orange embers blots out what had previously been a clear night. She next notices the little flakes floating down in the dusty air. A javelin strike. By the goddess, we could have been inside when that hit. Then again, that's probably what they were counting on. Lady Edelgard, she next hears Hubert cry. Are you all right? He and Ferdinand approach, still clinging to each other for stability. I am fine, Hubert. Gather as many of the others as possible. I need a full assessment of the damage. The Black Eagles, Golden Deer, and Blade Breakers all gather round a large fire for warmth as Hubert reports on the aftermath. Edelgard is not unaware of the trembles coursing through many of her troops, nor the dirt and ash staining their clothes. Even the hardened or exuberant mercenaries like Leone and Raphael sit and shake, oddly quiet. We estimate that roughly 45% of the fortress was demolished in that attack, specifically the central region, Hubert announces. Thankfully, most of our forces were not inside when the attack hit. The same cannot be said of our prisoners, the fortress civilians, or of Governor Aguirre. He casts a look to Ferdinand who sits, staring at his own boots, jaw clenched. Hubert continues, most of Aguirre's civilian population fortunately resides in his namesake county, but there were many who yet worked at this facility who have lost their lives alongside Ludwig. The Agarthans were, no doubt, intending to destroy the head of our forces with that attack. Bullshit! Leone shouts. I beg pardon. Hubert glares. She stands and continues raving while the group all stare at Hubert. You just now joined our forces right before the attack. Now the Agarthans pull this shit, nearly wiping us all out. Who's to say you weren't trying to convince Edelgard to get in the target zone? And how the hell are we supposed to deal with something like that? Enough. Byleth barks as she takes a stance in front of the group. Look, I know that attack was scary, but they just wasted it. As some of you already know, a javelin strike is a very limited resource. It will take them months to prepare another one, we'll have ended the war long before then. She turns to Leonie, I trust Hubert. Thanks to my powers, I already knew about him and how the javelins work, and I know that he adores Edelgard. If he wanted us killed by that attack, there were much better ways he could have and would have managed it. Leonie scoffs as she sits back down. Edelgard then rises, standing between Byleth and Hubert, I trust him, as well. We survived their most powerful attack. Together. And we'll show them the grave price of misfiring it. On that, you have my word. Chapter 62, On the Path to the End. Byleth walks amongst ruins. The beige stone recalls the architecture of Xanadu. Yet, all the rocks surrounding her are sandy pale. The sky above her shimmers blue as the sun twinkles in isolation, but she can't help but feel that the air is a bit suffocating. Is that from anxiety? Or something else? She wanders under gaping archways and past the remains of what appear to be houses. She finds a dirt road leading her to the edge of the small vacant village. The structures come to a stop with the road leading to a single building at the top of a hill. A shrine. A church? It's difficult to tell as she can only see portions of demolished walls and what she thinks might be a steeple. The sand and pebbles crunch underneath her boot steps. She looks down to the noise. She's wearing her ceremonial enlightened garb from the old world, as Rhea dubbed the clothing. She murmurs something to herself, but she can't quite tell what she said. So, she continues to follow the pathway to the final set of ruins. She wants to quicken, to run from an unknown sense of emergency, but her legs will only allow her to walk. As she paces, she examines the rocky formations surrounding her. There is no grass. No trees. And the rocks are all beige, perhaps they even have a tint of blue. It's then that Byleth realizes that whatever valley she's in can't quite be Xanadu. Even the Red Canyon had sparse plant life and grayer rocks. Even the buildings, while the same architecture as Nabatea, still possess minor differences. Though, that could simply be because this is a village of Nabatea. Nothing more. Why is she seeing this? Is this a memory of Suthies from a time long before? Yet, the ruins still look ancient. Byleth finally arrives at the church. Whatever doors it had must have disintegrated from the elements long ago. The inside is plain. Small mounds of sand cover the floor, lightly flowing in the faint breeze. She walks to the back wall of the holy place where she assumes a stage or pulpit would stand. Some sort of tablet lies shattered and worn. Each piece of the stone is engraved with writing. The strange characters look reminiscent of the script on Xanadu's ruins, and for some reason, she can read them. Most of the writing is worn to an unrecognizable state, but she can make out the occasional letter or syllable. And then Nan and so. Ma. Me, each a fraction of, something, that she sees on each piece of the tablet. But then, the final shard has a number. 12. Byleth gasps to consciousness with Edelgard's hand on her shoulder. Are you all right? Her fiancé asks. You were whimpering in your sleep. You usually rest so soundly. Byleth shakes her head, I don't know. I feel strange. Edelgard raises her brow in concern, was it a nightmare? I know our fighting takes its toll on the mind. It wasn't anything ferocious, Byleth answers. But I felt so anxious the whole time. So lonely. As though I was cut off. Did you dream of that other world again? The one with Shay? Byleth puts her hand on her face, I don't believe so. This felt different. Like a distant memory maybe? Like I was rediscovering something. I was in some place similar to Xanadu, amongst Nabatean ruins. I could read the language for some reason. Xanadu, Edelgard echoes. The Empire destroyed that long ago. Could your dream be related to Suthies? I have no doubts about that, Byleth says. I just don't know why I'm seeing this now. Maybe because we're so close to Nemesis. Edelgard smirks, I'm not going to say it's a message from the goddess or anything so grandiose, but perhaps whatever is left of your friend's soul is simply reacting to our situation. We're on the cusp of usurping the beings responsible for the destruction of Nabatea. Her people. I'm sure there's some kind of latent emotional reaction tied to her. Byleth rubs her temples, maybe. I can't explain it, but I feel like I'm being told something. Well, whatever it is, I'm sure you'll be able to discover the truth. You have a habit of that. Byleth nods, I hope so. It felt important. Did the boy ever stop screaming? Nemesis asks. Thales sneers, surprisingly, merely after the first 6 hours. It's a miracle he remained conscious through every session. I've never seen one so driven by rage. It's as though he feeds off of the pain we inflict. The pair sit at opposite ends of a long, Gothic dinner table for a strained formal meeting. Agarthan servants tensely line around the walls of the dark room, waiting in case any of them are called upon. The dinner itself consists of roasted bear, snake gizzards, and assorted greens. Using him as a fool's wager, Nemesis scoffs. It's a calculated risk, Thales retorts. Do I detect a hint of jealousy? Do you feel threatened, God Emperor? Nemesis bellows a hearty laugh, as though a head case like that could ever rule competently. I'm more concerned about the damage he'll do to my empire should you fail to rein him in. In case you hadn't noticed, Thales scowls, the traitorous vermin have you on the back foot. Such risks are necessary for the preservation of the empire which my predecessors graciously handed to you. Do not forget that your conquests are not your own. You are merely playing a pre-signed role. And do not forget the power that I wield. A power no other human can bear and remain sane. Those children that you toy with all break one way or the other. Thales gives a tense grin, congratulations. You've once again proven yourself to be a useful tool. Have no fear, if you survive the coming endeavor, you will remain at the seat of authority gifted to you. We'll dispose of the boy as soon as he's served his purpose. And if it turns out we have no need of him whatsoever, then all the better. Edelgard assembles her council in a large tent, their camp being sequestered in a forest some ways outside of Fort Mercers. Their war table is an improvised set of boxes organized in the center of the tent. Each member hovers over their own copy of a paper map of Adrestia. So how long until we get resupplied? Hilda asks. They should arrive in 2 days. More or less, Claude answers. Edelgard huffs, as eager as I am to put an end to all this, we cannot push an invasion on the capital without being as prepared as possible. Nemesis and his empire are going to be desperate, as are the Agarthans. Their powers and strategies are going to be unpredictable. What about Byleth? Geralt posits. She knows a lot about them. A lot, but not everything, Byleth responds. The Agarthans have become more powerful than ever, so who's to say what last-ditch plans they've developed? And there are other, uncertain elements, she thinks back to Shay. I agree with her assessment, Hubert interjects. Thales is a shrewd man. He has many schemes in the works. For instance, I know he's operating on some kind of weapon that he believes will turn the tide in his favor. Oh. Edelgard raises her brow. What sort of weapon? Unfortunately, I cannot say, Hubert shakes his head. He refused to speak of the project to anyone outside of his inner circle. I've only heard of it through his vague conversations with Ludwig. The only solid information I have on the matter is that Thales was using our late governor as a stalling tactic until he could complete the weapon. If that's the case, then I am absolutely certain we need to restock as much as we are able, Edelgard continues. Moreover, I'm calling in as many heavy hitters as possible for this final decisive strike. The Empire is going to hit us with everything they have. We will do the same to them. Ferdinand perks up, may I ask who all will be engaged in this final bout? I'm pulling in reinforcements from all over the continent: Central Fodlan, Leicester, Faergus, and Fodlan's Locket. What's more, the heads of houses Galatea, Goneril, Daphnel, Frildarius, Gautier, and Roche have all been summoned to this encounter. It should take less than 5 days for everyone to properly assemble, Edelgard explains. Hilda frowns, you're bringing in my brother? I thought he was just running defense at the Locket. Edelgard answers, I know it's a risk, Hilda, but we'll need every exceptional fighter we can get. And he's bringing your family's relic with him. Having several relic users in this fray will be a great boon to our chances. Claude sighs, so we're really calling in everyone and everything. We better be absolutely sure of our strategy going into this. Not everyone, Edelgard says. We still have to maintain token forces throughout Fodlan to ensure that there are no surprise counterattacks, and Yuri has elected not to risk any of his Ashen Wolves in this fight. Then let's get started hashing this out, shall we? Claude winks. First off, he holds up a map and points to Inber's general civilian sector. This is the highest concentration of Imperials we've ever fought. More than double the size of their other armies. Half of them are stationed in the city, which is under martial law. Thankfully, that means civilian casualties should be kept to a minimum as long as we restrict the fighting to the streets. Given that Nemesis Palace is banked on the ocean side, we'll have to fight our way to it. No way there but through their initial force. Hilda crosses her arms. That's a lot of stuff to take on all at once, especially since we'll have to deal with the army they're keeping in the palace afterwards. Do we have the stamina for a long-winded frontal assault like that? Edelgard nods. We'll attack in waves, splitting our greatest powers between two lines. I see, Claude scratches his chin. That's why you're calling in so many people. You want the relic users and their forces to be the first wave cutting through the Empire's preliminary defenses and clearing a way for the rest of us to get into Nemesis Fortress. Correct, Edelgard states. Any attack force led by powerful relics and crest bearers is sure to do a significant amount of damage, and it will allow us to, as you brought up, Hilda, save our stamina for the more ferocious confrontation ahead. In addition, each of our armies will be able to reinforce each other should the need arise. If I may, Byleth interrupts, I'd like to fight with both forces. Everyone turns to her in concern. Byleth, Edelgard begins, you'd be fighting for an unholy amount of time. This is a siege of our enemy's primary capital. I know, Byleth nods. I've been in long sieges before. Back when weaponry and transportation weren't nearly as efficient. You, more than anyone, know that I have tons of stamina to spare. Be Byleth. Edelgard shouts as she blushes. Byleth looks around to everyone either awkwardly shifting or, in Claude's case, snickering. Oh. And not like that, the Blunnet shakes her head, flushing. I just meant that I have powers in all. I can ensure that both waves of attack proceed more smoothly. I mean I do have a lot of that stamina, but... Byleth. Edelgard glowers again. Please stop before you further embarrass us both. And I've officially heard too much, Geralt grits. Anyway. Edelgard barks. We have the foundation for our plan. We'll have to wait for the others to arrive before we can work out the rest of the invasion details with them. What about Nemesis? Ferdinand asks. His power is, quite frankly, unparalleled. This is the same man who conquered a majority of this world and destroyed Ceros, after all. We need to address how we're going to handle that level of power. Avoid confronting him, if you can, Edelgard explains. Even with our numbers and relics, he may prove to be too much. Byleth is our main chance at stopping him. With any luck, Byleth adds, he'll be prideful enough to try attacking us at the start of the invasion. If I kill him and take the Sword of the Creator early on, then we're basically doubling our attack power for the rest of the battle. Oakman, Hilda gawks. You won't be that powerful. I wouldn't be too sure, Claude stretches. It's the same relic that Nemesis, once an ordinary human, used to slay a demigoddess, genocide a civilization of dragon people, and conquer the world. I can only imagine what Bai will do with it. Edelgard smirks. Nemesis wasn't worth much before that sword and his crest of flames. With both of those in the hands of the Ashen Empress, the tides will turn on the rest of the Empire as fiercely as a tsunami. Claude sighs, sounds like a pretty good lead. Too good. Which means that Thales will have probably told Nemesis to stay inside so they can use this other weapon Hubert mentioned instead. Hubert nods, that is the most likely scenario. As haughty as Nemesis is, Thales is still the mastermind. He won't gamble everything away in a fight against Byleth that, as I understand it, Nemesis has already lost once. In all likelihood, Thales has something else planned for the Ashen Empress, though I haven't the faintest idea what it could be. Edelgard turns to Byleth, you've dealt with them before. Do you have any inklings as to what their strategy for you is? Byleth shakes her head, no. The only thing that comes to mind is a spell that needs the now burned down sealed forest, which is all the way by Old Garag Mach territory. Shay leans against a dark rock in an astral space, staring up at the alien stars. Have you heard all the excited chatter of the Imperials? Arvel asks, sitting on a nearby rock. The climax will soon be upon us. Of course I heard, Shay retorts. If you heard it, I heard it. That's how this whole deal works. You're the one who told me that. I was being rhetorical, Arvel grumbles. What I am truly inquiring is, are you prepared for the final confrontation with the Ashen Demon? This conflict will set the destiny of all Fodlan. Mayhap even the very world itself. We mustn't fail to erase the demon. We cannot afford otherwise. About that, Shay sighs. Did anything the Ashen Demon say in our last fight make any sense to you? They really seemed like they didn't want to fight us. Have I not already told you? It likely senses that we are a threat to it. It doesn't seem that simple, Shay frowns. If they were just scared of us, why didn't they kill us already? They've had multiple chances by now. What is it that you are implying? Arvel fidgets with their earring. At best, it pities us. I don't know. They seem to want to convince us of something. I'm not sure what. Please, Arvel scoffs. Do not let yourself lose sight of our goal. That monster and its allies need to be stopped before they force the world to bend knee to their whims. Arvel, I'm telling you something about this doesn't feel right. Just a gut feeling, Shay sits up. Arvel glares, does your gut not remind you of how we found ourselves in this predicament? It slaughtered your troop before your very eyes. Your captain sacrificed herself in a vain attempt to stop it. Nothing will change what the demon did, Shay stands and dusts off his pants. But that's just the way it goes with mercenary work sometimes. They clearly have it out for the Empire for some reason, and that's why we first came to blows. And it's like they've been trying to convince us not to side with the Empire for a while now. I'm just wondering if there's a better way to handle this. Are you informing me that you no longer seek to destroy the demon and avenge your comrades? Arvel floats up and points. I don't know. Maybe, Shay shrugs. Doesn't this feel kinda wrong to you? Ugh, Arvel growls. Fine. Do what you must. I have no choice but to support you as your partner. Yet remember, you must necessarily be more cognizant of these different parties and their motivations. You cannot continue to operate on your emotions alone. That's, Shay scratches his chin, pretty good advice. That maybe we should both follow. Chapter 63, The Invasion of Inver. The United Revolutionary Army maintains a sizable camp 1 mile outside of Inver. Neither Imperial forces nor revolutionaries have engaged each other beyond a couple clashes between border patrols. The camp expands as the last of their forces, Holst's small army, joins with the rest of the allies. Sorry I'm late, Holst huffs. Being on the opposite end of the continent makes it hard to move so many guys. Their war council, comprised of every allied leader from across Fodlan, gathers in a large tent. Soldiers pace around outside the tent, filling last-second preparations as the air pulses with tension, fear, and excitement. Better late than never, Claude folds his arms. Still, the rest of us have already worked out how we're going to tackle this. Edelgard adds, you, alongside Lester and Faergus forces, are going to lead a charge against the Imperials in the city. My team, along with our mercenary troops, will invade the palace after you clear the way. The Ashen Empress will fight among both armies. Holst laughs, I'm just glad that I finally get to see some real action. I was afraid you were going to bench Lester's heaviest hitter for this whole war. Holst, don't say that, Hilda scowls. I don't need you treating this like a game. Hilda, Holst chuckles. I either treat it like a game, or I psych myself out by being afraid of it. One at least gives me more confidence. By the way, I brought you something. He steps outside the tent for a second and re-enters alongside 2 of his soldiers who bear a metal crate. I figured you'd be better off using this for the battle than me, since you're better trained with axes and hammers and stuff. He opens the crate, revealing free Kugel inside. Holst, Hilda looks uncertain, are you sure? Yeah, I'd much rather stick to my sword if it's all the same. And since this is the final battle, we should probably maximize our resources and strength. Hilda tentatively stares at the crate. She reaches out a hand, hesitates, then grabs the axe. A flare of orange-red energy lets out of the crest stone as she touches the weapon. I don't know what to say, she stares at the thrumming axe. Just promise to put it to good use, Holst grins. Hilda simply nods in response. Also promise not to do anything stupid with that relic while you're out there, Claude interjects with a rare showing of concern. Don't worry, Claude, Hilda winks. I won't do anything that gets me killed. Dying sucks. Don't worry. We'll look out for each other, Holst pats Claude on the back, causing him to lurch forward. Noted, Claude tersely responds. Give me, Edelgard, Ferdinand interrupts, but who is going to lead our initial attack? Edelgard smirks, Governor Galatea, Claude, and I were going to leave the charge to you. Are you up to the task? Ingrid stares and briefly stammers, oh of course. But why not leave this to a more experienced leader such as Judith or Holst? Don't lose confidence, girl, Judith scolds. Holst and I are used to fighting on Leicester and Almiron soil. You know Adrestia better. And you have more experience with Adrestian military protocol. Ingrid, Edelgard probes, can we count on you? Yes, Ingrid nods. Sylvain puts his hand on Ingrid's shoulder and smiles, I'll be with you every step of the way. Byleth interjects, I'll be with you, too. I won't let anything happen to any of you. Thank you. All of you, Ingrid politely bows. She turns to Edelgard, I promise I won't let you down. Way to go, kid. Holst beams. I look forward to properly working with ya. Gerald folds his arms, and that just leaves us going with Edelgard. I know it's part of the plan, but just sitting on my ass while a whole battle is going on makes me feel jittery. We'll be on standby if they need anything, Edelgard explains. Otherwise, we need to save our energy for the battle in the palace. Shamir grits, we had better pull this off so that all this death wasn't for nothing. Shamir, Edelgard answers, I swear that nobody's death will have been in vain. We will win the day. Too many people are counting on us. Shamir gives a neutral hum as Hubert bows to Edelgard. Then on your word, he says, our forces are ready to begin the final battle. The Ashen Empress whips her blade through a squad of enforcers then scans around. Beside her, Holst splits a soldier with his weapon, his vibro greatsword breaking through their hollow shield. Annette, Ingrid, and Sylvain all crush their own respective enemies with their relics. Ash uses a demolished car for cover while he picks off Imperials with his rifle. Felix slices through enemies with speed and precision surpassed only by Petra. Hilda cheers as her relic easily melts through one enforcer's shields and body armor, wow. So this is what a relic is like. I mean, it's a little gross considering what it is, but still. Please focus, Hilda. Ingrid orders. Just then, a pair of blades comes within an inch of piercing Ingrid from behind. She gasps and steps back as a loud clang echoes through the streets. The two blades have been halted by Lady at Midnight as the Ashen Empress stands between Ingrid and Shay. Damn it, Shay huffs as he backs off. I almost had their commander. Ingrid gapes, who? Ingrid, the Empress interrupts, I'll handle this one. The rest of you aren't strong enough. But he doesn't even have a relic, Sylvain retorts. Just focus on the rest of the battle. Byleth barks. I suppose I should be flattered, Shay smirks, though Byleth can see the slight tremble in his grip. The two stand across from each other. The noise of the surrounding battle filters out. Bright rays from the setting sun sift between the buildings, putting Shay aglow while the Empress remains in shadow. And then, gentle flakes start meandering downward, the first snowfall of the year. This is it, Arvel states. This is the day the Ashen Demon will finally be purged by our combined might. Let's hope you're right about that, Shay answers. He lunges towards Byleth in a flurry. His form leaves after images as he flicks his true power to life. Bursts of orange, gold, and purple dance all around them as Shay clashes against the Empress defenses from every side. She blocks every attack, maintaining her cautious stance. You're going to burn through your stamina doing that, she warns. Don't patronize me. Shay counters as he jabs. She deflects the blow. I'm trying to teach you. You seem to have trouble seeing the world for what it is. Oh, how generous, he slashes upward. Again, she stops his attack. Shay, the power you're using, and the empire you're defending, both belong to an ancient cult that has sought to rule over humanity. I'm using my power to free them, not enslave them. We both know that if I wanted you dead, you would be. Don't listen to its drivel, Arvel cautions. I no longer believe it is lying to preserve itself, but it is apparent to me now that it's gone rather mad. You sound awful certain of that, Shay retorts. Shay, we have been partners for years now, standing side by side in this cold and violent world. You know you can trust me. I have no intentions of ruling humanity, and I am most certainly not some dark spirit. And what about that other thing that silences you and takes over my body? I do not know. I only know that I am sincerely trying to protect both you and this world, and I will do whatever it takes. You are my partner and therefore far too invaluable to manipulate or lose. I trust you, Shay answers. Then let us conclude this battle. The mercenary again dashes toward Byleth and swipes his blades. Sparks spray outward as his attack scrapes against her sword. Rather than back off, he strikes towards her a second time with his blades in an X formation. She traps the attack with her weapon. Shay then smirks, let's see you look down on me without your fancy sword. He then pulls his blades in opposite directions with every ounce of power he can muster. Embers shower in white and violet as Lady at Midnight tears apart, chunks of ebony metal scattering onto the road below them. Shay then distances himself and beams with pride. That's it. Arvel cheers. Now finish this. You're done. Shay bellows as he charges for Byleth. His blades are wrapped in a furious energy as he strikes against her. She hollers in pain as a mass of white energy explodes out in all directions. Shay and Byleth are sent tumbling in opposite directions. The battle around them goes quiet as both sides elect to stare instead of fight. Shay stumbles to his feet, transformation spent, chest heaving. You've finally done it. The Ashen Demon is no more, Arvel states. Before Shay can respond, the Ashen Empress stands without so much as a tremor. Two large, searing gashes adorn her armor as she straightens herself out. I'll admit, she says. That one knocked the wind out of me. And hurt. A lot. I don't understand. Arvel panics. That should have destroyed it. Shay gawks, how? The Empress begins to remove her helmet, letting the metal plating drop to the ground, which is now covered in a thin veil of snow as the paused battlefield maintains its eerie quiet. You should see me when I have my real sword, she grins. Even if that attack could have killed me, she explains, it wouldn't have. I first discovered my divine pulse because I received a similar killing blow by saving someone important. Even though I can't use it at will anymore, it still exists within me. Not that that attack was strong enough to best me anyway. She starts walking towards Shay. Tell me, what is it inside your head that led you to believe that I was weaker than I was? What is it that's been controlling you? It shouldn't be this strong. Why is it this strong? Arvel gasps. What the hell is a divine pulse? Shay bites. Long story, Byleth shakes her head. As you can see, I'm a person like you. Not some monster out to destroy the world. Shay, I am begging you, stop this nonsense. Stop fighting for the Empire, and let me help you with your power. There's something inside you that's... Shay screams as a surge of pain storms in his brain, damn it. And not now. Byleth reaches out, Shay. A flare of golden energy shields the Azura. Then, in a layered voice, they shrill in rage. The Azura glares at Byleth, then runs off without a word. Byleth clenches her fist in frustration as the entity flees. Then, she looks around her. Revolutionaries and Imperials both stare in silence. She paces towards one enforcer shakily pointing a vibro sword at her. I need a new weapon. Give me yours. Chapter 64, To the End of a Dream. Annette and Hilda crash their relics into Inbear Palace's front gates, folding the metal doors under their power as easily as snapping straw. The Black Eagles, Golden Deer, and Blade Breakers flood into the entryway of the fortress, engaging enforcers. The Ashen Empress leads the charge to more easily anchor the revolutionaries into the megastructure. As the fighting commences, Edelgard stops by Annette and Hilda. The Flame Emperor scans over their sweat and minor wounds. You two have done well. Please fall back and get some rest. Yeah, sounds good, Hilda meekly pants in agreement with Annette. The pair of them retreat back to their now encamped initial force as night sets over the city. Snow gathers on tents and vehicle transports as Edelgard takes one final look at Inber, then charges into the palace. She first stops by the Empress as the Blunet cleaves through enforcers with an ordinary vibro sword. Your helmet and usual weapon are both missing, Edelgard notes. Are you going to be able to fight Nemesis like that? I'll be fine, Byleth answers. He's not the one that concerns me. Just make sure Thales doesn't escape. I wouldn't dream of it, Edelgard asserts. From there, the revolutionary forces press on. Alarms blare in blood-stained halls as the chaos of their war erupts to its climax. Only 40 minutes pass of them fighting their way through the fortress inch by inch. As they draw nearer the throne room, Bernadetta suddenly screams in overcoms. Edelgard, she cries. Another army of Imperials have shown up at the city limits and are engaging our forces. A third army? Edelgard gawks. Damn it. Who the hell is leading it? I don't know. According to our people's chatter, it's some guy named Acker something. Bernadetta explains. Akiran, Claude seethes. Son of a, I thought a weasel like that would just sit out this war. Who is Akiran? Edelgard asks. Claude shakes his head, small-time politician / corpo. A viscount. The Empire must have threatened him to lend them his aid. Our first wave of forces are exhausted, Edelgard huffs. I don't know if they can afford to fight another army so soon, even with their relics. I'll go, Byleth interrupts. Byleth, Edelgard begins, we need you here to fight Nemesis. I can't let my old students die to some rat's surprise attack. And if you get pincered between two armies, that'll spell trouble for everyone. I have to help them. Claude barks back, and what are we supposed to do about Nemesis then? Don't fight him on your own, Byleth answers. Try to overwhelm him with as many crest users and mercs as possible. Use both short-range and long-range attacks on him at the same time. You built all this together, you can beat him together. Very well then, Edelgard sighs. Just return to us quickly. I'll be back as soon as possible, Byleth smiles. I promise. The Ashen Empress then runs off after kissing Edelgard on the cheek, causing the Flame Emperor to blush. All right, Torchy, Claude says, what about us? We need to track down Thales before we confront Nemesis, Edelgard responds. We know he has some form of weapon, and we can't risk him escaping in the final bout with the God Emperor. Claude huffs, I hate to say it, but that's best accomplished if we split up. That will work so long as none of us attempt to take on the throne room alone. It's a plan, then, Claude affirms. A shitty plan, probably, but a plan. I'll go let Geralt and the others know. As the Black Eagles progress through the halls, Edelgard calls for Hubert. You have spent the most time working with the Agarthants. Do you have any ideas as to Thales' whereabouts? Hubert shakes his head. My apologies, Lady Edelgard, but unfortunately, I do not. The full layout of Inber Palace is kept secret even from the governors, as well as my sources. I am unaware of any locations in which he would maintain a laboratory. Yet, if I had to hazard a guess, I would suggest starting with the library or the dungeon. Petra nods, that is making sense. The dungeon is an easy place to be getting victims for experiments, and the library here is a place of vast, dark knowledge. I agree, Edelgard nods. If my memory serves, the library is closer, as well as the safer bet. Leave it to Edie to still remember the palace even after all this time. Dorothea shakily cheers. It's as good a lead as any, Casper says. Kman, we have to hurry. The Black Eagles spend nearly an hour simply fighting their way through to the library. Edelgard finally breaks the door down when they manage to arrive. The library is lightly defended. Edelgard is unsure if that's because the Empire wasn't expecting her to strike that location, or if it's due to some sort of trap. The chamber itself is quite large with multiple stories. Bookshelves, cabinets, data ports, and mainframes line up through the various floors. Do you suppose Thales is hiding in here? Mercedes asks. Or were we wrong? That snake isn't here, a deep voice booms from a balcony above and behind them. They turn to see Nemesis standing alone, causing a few of the Black Eagles to stammer and swear under their breath. God Emperor! Edelgard bellows. Stand down or face justice before our forces. Nemesis' laughter resounds off the walls and shelves. Little one. You've surely heard legends of my strength. You don't truly believe you can best me, do you? Even with that experimental power of yours. You are a fool to challenge us alone. Edelgard barks back. Funny, Nemesis smirks. I was just going to say the same of you. He leaps down from the balcony, and the vibration tremors throughout the entire floor. Nemesis continues, I must say this is familiar. It's unfortunate your beastly demon isn't around. I was looking forward to crushing it after what it did last time. Even so, slaughtering you should take the wind out of your little rebellion. Watch out for that sword. Edelgard instructs. It operates identically to the Ashen Empress. Spoiling the surprise is no fun. Nemesis grunts as he whips the Creator Sword down towards the team. The eagles scatter out of the way as embers and fire spill out of the newly formed chasm. Edelgard, Petra, Caspar, and Ferdinand all rush for Nemesis while Dorothea, Mercedes, and Hubert stay back for cover. Nemesis brings his sword down at Petra, who dashes beside the attack and scrapes the blade of her sword against some metal plating affixed into his torso, leaving a superficial march. He attempts to knee her, but she sprints away to gain a better vantage. Edelgard and Caspar swing their axe and hammer at the God Emperor. The Creator Sword catches Edelgard's axe as Nemesis grabs the head of Caspar's hammer mid-strike. He swings the hammer, raising Caspar off the ground. As he sets to throw the blue-haired mercenary, Ferdinand jabs his vibro lance into Nemesis' shin, though the blade doesn't pierce very deep as it clashes against a steel-coated bone. Still, it's enough pain to cause Nemesis to release his grip on Caspar, causing the diminutive revolutionary to roll across the floor as he lands. Nemesis thrusts his sword to push Edelgard away and raises his foot to kick Ferdinand. However, Thoron beams into his shoulder, causing sparks to fly as one of his shoulder pieces explodes off of him. He grunts and then quickly zeroes in on his attacker. He whips the Creator Sword towards Dorothea. Mercedes tackles the songstress out of the path of the attack, screaming in a shrill tone, "Look out!" Nemesis readies another attack as Petra's blade slices against his spine with a horrendous screech, misbalancing him. Caspar and Ferdinand then charge him from his flanks. In return, Nemesis jabs his sword into the floor. A wave of fire and energy explodes out in every direction, launching the three of them back. Edelgard, however, uses her shield to block the blast. She then lunges towards Nemesis with her axe, which he catches again with his sword. "You're a strong one, little girl," he gives a toothy grin. "Yet not strong enough." He pushes her back until she's pressed against a bookcase. She drops her shield and grips her weapon's haft with both hands, shoving back with all her might. Nevertheless, Nemesis doesn't budge as he continues grinning. He thrusts forward, slamming Edelgard's back against the case and knocking it over. Then, he screams as dark spikes dig into his back, having been summoned by Hubert. Nemesis swings Edelgard to the side and turns to his attacker. Then the floor bubbles and bursts beneath him as Mercedes summons Balganon under the God Emperor, his flesh metal searing. Then a shimmering sky-blue bolt crashes against his head and shoulders, melting the ground under him from the intense combination of heat, as a Dorothea drops Ania's arrow onto him. "Fuck off and stop hurting my friends," the songstress voice trembles. Nemesis hisses as his legs sink into the melting ground. He raises the Creator Sword to whip it towards Dorothea, but Hubert and Mercedes summon Banshee Theta and Ragnarok simultaneously. Nemesis screams as he's bombarded with molten heat and dark energies from all sides. When the magic subsides, his metal implants are glowing orange as his flesh is charred black with bloody red cracks exposed. His hair and beard are completely incinerated as he grits through his bloody teeth. Brazen, upstart, Childer, his seething, rasping voice cuts out as a vibro axe splits his head down the middle from behind. Nemesis Cole and Scarlet Eyes slacken as Edelgard puts her boot on his shoulder to yank her axe out of his head. As she does so, his enormous body slumps forward. Dorothea drops to the floor. Holy fucking shit, we did it. Mercedes paces over to the songstress and kneels by her. You're not hurt, are you? I'm fine, merci. She falls back and laughs. Edelgard stares at the blood on her axe in disbelief. Before this moment, she trained herself never to overthink the blood that stained her weapon night after night. It would only make her duty that much more difficult. Enough guilt weighed on her shoulders as things stood. But now, this blood belongs to Nemesis, a major figurehead in the Empire. With his demise, the tides of the war have indefinitely turned. With his death, a new dawn is heralded for all the world. Even so, I, too, am greatly relieved that Nemesis has fallen. Hubert interrupts as he helps Ferdinand to his feet. Yet I must exercise caution. We have yet to find Thales or truly defeat the Empire in this battle. Our work is far from over. Spoil sport, Dorothea pouts. Do not sour the mood, love, Ferdinand chides Hubert. We did good, Hubert. Caspar retorts as he and Petra help themselves to their feet. Petra limps towards Dorothea and sits by her side. For once, I am having agreement with Caspar. Even if we are not finishing the hunt of the Agarthans tonight, the day has still been won. The Empire's systems will be collapsing. And ours will be rising. Humph. Fine, Hubert grumbles. Lady Edelgard, do you have any words for this momentous occasion? The Flame Emperor looks to her friends. Truth be told, this is so surreal that I'm not certain what to say. The God Emperor has fallen, and the Agarthans' hold over humanity has been wrested from their grip. Hubert is correct, our fight is not over. Much of the work has yet to be done. But, this is history in the making. Our deeds today will be known for generations to come. Caspar sighs. Even when you claim you don't know what to say, you still manage to give a speech off the cuff. Do you rehearse these in a mirror? Only the speeches that I know I'll have to give, Edelgard smirks. The Black Eagles hear the sounds of a man mewling and whimpering draw closer from the hall outside the library. Only a couple seconds later, Byleth sprints into the room manhandling Viscount Acheron. Edelgard, she shouts in concern. I'm here. Byleth glances down to the large corpse of Nemesis, who would be unrecognizable if not for his relic. I see you already won, she sighs in relief. By the skin of our teeth, yes. Who's your friend? Edelgard asks, seated on a collapsed bookcase. Byleth drops Acheron to the floor, and he moans, please. The Emperor made me do it. He made me attack you. He. The Viscount notices Nemesis' charred body. Oh, I think I'm going to be ill. Get sick somewhere else, she shoos the Viscount away. This is Acheron, she explains to Edelgard. He folded almost immediately after I managed to fight my way to him. So he's not loyal. Duly noted, Edelgard stands and hugs Byleth. We did it. We beat Nemesis. Yes, Byleth chuckles. It certainly smells like victory in here. Seared, burned victory. What of Thales? We will find him yet, Hubert interjects. Mark my words. As Byleth and Edelgard separate from their hug, the professor glances over to Nemesis once again. She walks to his body and bends over, picking up his blade. The sword of the Creator thrums and flashes as Byleth retrieves it. With this, she asserts, we'll make quick work of whatever Thales has in store. As she speaks, a crimson surge of light rings around Edelgard, warping her away in a flash. The Flame Emperor finds herself in a large chamber in the dungeons. It seems to be a cafeteria cleared of any tables. A voice draws her attention to a walkway above her. Lost little Hresvelg, Thales announces himself. It seems that brute wasn't even up to the task of killing you, let alone that fell beast. Thales. Edelgard shouts back. I don't know what you're planning, but it's over. Cease this nonsense. Your empire has fallen. Would-be conqueror, surely you realize that Nemesis was but a puppet. A weapon, not unlike yourself. Nonetheless, he'd become old. Faded. Useless. Even with our marvelous technology, he had finally worn down. As such, a replacement was deemed necessary. Unfortunately, that replacement is a failure, much like you. But at least you two will do me the favor of killing each other. Thales raises his arm, summoning dark runes. He warps away the same instant that another figure warps in across from Edelgard. The man is large, clad in dark armor. In his hands, he holds a vibro lance. His long, unkempt hair is a snowy white, much like her own. Thales, what did you do? The man looks up at her, one blue eye fixed upon her, the other beneath a patch. It's you, he softly begins. After all this time. I've finally found you. What, she gasps. Who are you? How do you know that name? Don't you recognize me? He starts raising his voice. Of course you'd forget me. You left me to die, after all. Why should I expect any different? I have no idea who you are or why you think I wronged you, Edelgard defends. Bullshit, he spits. All these years, you spent striking at the Empire. And not once did you bother to come looking for me, to see if I was still alive. Do you have any idea how long I've suffered under them? Do you have any idea what they did to me? His voice is shrill, brimming with the same hate Edelgard has for the Agarthans, the same hate she buries deep into her core. I was one of their experiments, too. Don't give me that shit, he cries. You never cared. Not for me. Not for anyone. Your cause is a lie you tell yourself at night so you can sleep, living with what you've done to the people of this world. You, Nemesis, Thales, you're all the same, slaughtering anyone and everyone in your games for power. You don't even care enough to remember my name. Edelgard frowns, losing her patience. I don't recognize you, whoever you are. All I can say is that you strike me as quite delusional. Whatever lies the Agarthans fed you are just that, lies. Neither of us are human anymore, We're both monsters foaming at the mouth and ready to kill each other. Stop calling me that, she bites. And cast aside what little we have of our past, he spits. Did it all truly mean so little to you, Come, I want to hear your final words. I want to hear you call me D one last time as I watch you die. Perhaps with your power, you'll still be able to speak it as I remove your head. Dimitri, she gawks. How in the name of the goddess? How are you alive? Governor Agir told me you died. He told me they buried you, Lambert, and our mother in a ditch. And you never cared enough to verify his claim. Dimitri. I never thought to check because they had already killed everyone else, everyone that I. Dimitri, I had no cause to believe that they spared you because they killed the rest of my family. For so long I was broken. Alone. Don't regurgitate that shit, he screams. You have no idea what it's like to be in their grasp for so long. You don't know what it means to suffer. I may not know what you went through, but I've suffered more than enough, Dimitri. Stand down, and we can end this tonight. Ha, he bellows. And let you claim the world for yourself. Someone has to stabilize things in the wake of the Empire's collapse. Another lie to trick others down your bloody path, he sneers. I won't be misled so easily. I see you for what you are, a tyrant, pure and simple. One who tramples on the weak. Your words will hold no sway as I rip your skull from your shoulders. Then my brother died long ago, Edelgard responds. And the tempest of delusion in front of me simply becomes another obstacle to be demolished. Chapter 65, The Hour of Vengeance. Where the hell did Edie go? Dorothea gapes. Hubert. Byleth immediately reacts. I know you can track dark magic, where'd they summon Edelgard? Hubert grits, I am not certain. He holds his hand out and dark runes form around his feet. I can sense something beneath us, but I am not certain as to what it is. Thanks, is all Byleth says before she sprints off. Wait. Mercedes shouts. It's no use, Ferdinand shakes his head. She's already off. We should inform Claude that the two of them are likely to be in the dungeon. Byleth sprints down halls and stairwells, slicing through any Imperials that attempt to cross her, though most avoid her fury. Her armor whistles through the air as she runs at inhuman speeds. However, A blinding swirl of orange and purple light sears through a wall next to the Ashen Empress, colliding with her as they crash through the opposite wall. They burst into the middle level of a grand meeting chamber, no doubt meant for delegates from the world over to kiss at Nemesis' heels. Byleth tumbles down onto the lowest level, crashing onto the stage in the center of the chamber. The Azura, in their awakened form, lands on their feet and stands atop a desk a few levels above Byleth. Their layered voice echoes out, "Felstar. Our ancient battle ends here. I don't have time for you." Byleth stands. The Azura smirks, "You have no other option." Byleth holds up the sword of the Creator in defense as the Azura charges down, slashing against the relic. They back off, then lunge forward again in a furious eruption of energy. The two beings clash as energy flares from their respective weapons. The Azura sneers, "You cannot keep putting off our fight. More of my power returns to me. I am growing strong enough to kill you. What's more, if one of us does not end the other quickly, your human will meet her fate." "Where is she?" Byleth pushes back against the Azura, launching them back a few feet. As they land, they taunt, "Thales has summoned this world's Dimitri to kill the wretch. If you fail to kill me, the boar, as Felix likes to call him, will silence your precious emperor. If not him, then I will kill her. I won't let you." "Then kill me yourself, if you want to save her," the Azura shouts. "You cannot keep cowering away from our destiny. Kill the boy, or be killed by me." "What are you? Why are you doing this?" Byleth presses. "I am the defender of this world's paradise. A paradise I spent countless generations beyond time building. I won't allow you or your lordlings to interfere anymore." "What sort of defender uses an innocent kid as a shield?" Byleth retorts. "I need him as a vessel," the Azura explains. "It's a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. Surely a follower of Edelgard would know all about that." "A follower of Edelgard fights so that monsters like you don't use children as weapons," Byleth counters. "How rich, coming from you," they grin. The Azura charges down the audience chamber in a flurry of energies, slicing and searing through chairs and desks the whole way. Their blades crash against Byleth's in quick succession. Byleth swings the Creator sword upward. Though the Azura shields against the strike, the force of it sends them flying and spinning through the air. Even so, they land on their feet atop one of the many built-in desks a few levels up. Byleth then whips her sword into that desk, incinerating it and causing the Azura to drop. They roll down a couple levels, but quickly regain their footing and launch another attack at Byleth, who defends. "You can't beat me," Byleth says. "Especially not when I have this sword. Let Shay go. If you can defeat me, then do it. Go on. Kill the boy and me. Make the sacrifice for your new empire." Byleth kicks the Azura through a nearby podium and into one of the rises. "I don't know what you are or how Thales made you, but I'm not letting you dictate the terms here." They stand and grin, "Thales has nothing to do with me. I am going to end you. And if I cannot, then I'll ensure I destroy whatever humanity you have left in that dead heart of yours. If you refuse to allow Agartha to rightfully rule over humanity, then I'll corrupt your kind so you destroy humanity. Punishment is all you foul creatures deserve. Human and Nabatean alike. Concede to our paradise or die. Answer me, damn it. What are you? Some kind of Agarthan weapon? An Agarthan god?" The Ashen Demon losing her temper, they mock. "Who'd imagine a day like this would come? I have existed long before Thales, and I have been carrying out my work for ages. That is all I will grant you thusly." The chamber lights up as the Azura again dashes against the Empress in the blink of an eye. The humming and scraping of their weapons resound across the room's many levels. A cement pillar crumbles as Dimitri's lance crashes through it, Edelgard jumping away from the strike. "Hold still," he screams. Edelgard says nothing as she slashes her axe towards him. He backsteps as the blade grazes against his dark armor. "It doesn't matter how you may injure me," he seethes. "I'll die if it means taking you with me." "Looking upon you now," Edelgard states, "it's difficult to imagine that you were once my brother. When Byleth told me that you had the capacity to become this, I didn't want to believe her. Again you cast me aside." He jabs his lance for her and she deflects. I feel no hate for you, Dimitri. Only pity that it falls to me to put you down. Don't treat me like an animal, he shrieks as his lance then drops down on top of her. She struggles to block the blade with her axe. As they push against one another, neither gains an inch of ground. You think you're the strongest of us? Dimitri scoffs. You're not the only one who was forced to bear the crest of flames. No. But I've had more practice. Edelgard then ducks forward, causing Dimitri to stumble as her axe slips out from his pressure. She swings for him again, but he barely blocks in time. His nostrils flare. Leave it to you to play dirty. I will do what I must, she says. Keep telling yourself that. He pushes his lance forward and Edelgard slides back. He thrusts, and she catches the point with the hook of her axe. Their weapons release an awful scrape as they grind against each other from the tension. Finally, the friction gives way as the force and counterforce of their powers push their weapons out of their grasps. The axe and lance fly across the dungeon cafeteria, clanging against the far wall. With their blades out of hand, the two rush for each other. Dimitri swings his long grip, but Edelgard ducks under it. She collides with his torso and pins him against a wall, punching a body shot into his ribs. He grunts as he grabs one of her hair buns and yanks her back, forcing her to yelp. He then grabs her throat and throws her against a nearby wall. You were my brother, she grits. And now you're insane. And now I'm your killer. It shouldn't fall to anyone else but your brother, the only family you have left, whom you've left to rot. After today, I will have left you to rot, she knees him in the diaphragm. As soon as he reels, Edelgard grabs his long bangs and jerks his head down while simultaneously bringing up her knee again. His forehead collides with her limb's metal plating, causing him to tumble back. She tackles him while he attempts to regain his balance, straddling him as she strikes his face twice. He screams as he throws her off by several feet. As they both stand, she quietly picks up a piece of debris from the nearby smashed pillar and hides it behind her cape, while he wipes at the blood oozing from his cheeks and forehead. Bitch, he seethes. I hear that a lot, she scowls. He charges for her, but she throws the chunk of cement into his forehead and veers off towards the weapons. Edelgard quickly snatches up both the axe and the lance. It's over, Dimitri, she says. I'm better trained, and I'm armed. I'll rip your heart from your throat if it's the last thing I do, he yells as he rushes towards her. She swings both weapons towards him. Dimitri reaches out, successful grabbing the upper half of the lance just below the blade. However, the axe burrows into his thigh and he shrieks. Still, he manages to break his lance from her grip as he stumbles back. You may be larger, she observes, but I have more experience. And I have my rage, he boils. You'd be surprised at what it can do. You think I don't have that same rage, she counters. After everything I've been through? You are not the only one who's lost their family, who's been tortured, because these vermin. Then we'll see whose hate is stronger, Dimitri jeers as he sprints at her, lance first. A gleaming arrow of energy digs into his shoulder, and he staggers to the side. Claude bellows from the walkway above them, sorry, big guy. As interesting as that would be, I'm gonna have to step in. Who the hell? Dimitri spits. Claude continues with a wink, I'm not the honorable sort, nor am I one to hedge my bets on equal odds. Claude. Edelgard gapes. How in the world did you find us? Claude scratches his chin, Hubie said you were probably in the dungeon. The others are around here, keeping the rest of the Imperials off our backs. And where's Byleth? She asks. Not sure actually. She disappeared part way through the fight. Maybe she's looking for Thales, but we can't worry about that right now. Dimitri interrupts, anyone who stands in my way will be ground to dust. Get out or be crushed like that witch. Claude shakes his head, your new friend is charming. I haven't time to explain, Edelgard responds. Just help me end this already. Edelgard and Dimitri charge for one another. They both swing simultaneously, but Claude's relic shoots through Dimitri's upper chest, causing him to swerve his strike. Edelgard then plants her axe blade into his lower abdomen, then kicks him back. He lurches to the ground, clutching at the gaping wound on his lower torso. Steaming blood spills through his fingers and onto the floor below. No, he barks. I'm going to win. I'm going to kill you. Dimitri, stop this madness, Edelgard demands. You're beaten. He forces himself back to his feet and limps forward. Dimitri's voice starts to distort as he continues, I won't give in, to the likes of you. This pain is nothing. He then jerks and falls to his knees. He grabs at his head with both hands as he curls forward, screaming. His inhuman cries mix agony with hate as he writhes. His voice becomes increasingly warped as a wriggling black ooze pours from his wounds. The fluid quickly cocoons him as his arms flail. Thales slinks into the entrance to the palace's meeting chamber, eyes widening as he sees the inhuman fight light up the vast area. So, this is the Fell Star, and the source of that Agarthan magic I sensed, he murmurs to himself. As he examines the Azura, he gawks, that power, is that, the light of Agartha. The Azura's blades sear through a wall as Byleth bounds out of the way. She then whips the Creator Sword into the floor beside them, igniting an explosion that sends them rolling into one of the sets of steps rising through the chamber. The Azura laughs as they stand and brush off the cinders, an attack fit to train children. The longer you stall, the more likely it is that Dimitri has killed Edelgard. End this already. Byleth shakes her head, I'm not. She stops and gapes up to the entrance of the chamber as she spots Thales, who sneers back down to her. The Azura follows her gaze and smirks as he sees the Agarthan leader. Oh, this is perfect, they chuckle. I can bring an end to this, after all. They flourish up to Thales in a burst of speed and light. Thales, your timing is quite impeccable. Thales stares, you're the mage of ancient days. The one who stood by Nemesis in the final battle. The Azura chortles, and you're the perfect sacrifice to seal the Fell Star once and for all. Thales gasps as they jab their sword through his chest. An aura of darkness bleeds out through the wound and quickly floods the room, swirling around as a dark whirlwind. Byleth's vision blackens as the dark magic overtakes her. Chapter 66, The Woman Who Became God. Arvel. Arvel. Shay calls. A starry, nebulous void surrounds Byleth and Shay on all sides as they wander amongst the dark rocks. Who is Arvel? Byleth asks. It's a bit difficult to explain. He's like a spirit that lives inside you and grants you power, Byleth answers. Yeah, how did you know that? Shay raises an eyebrow. I told you before, the Agarthans granted you power. Well, the Nabateans had something similar with me, Byleth explains. About that, Shay pinches his chin, you keep saying that word. I don't know what Agarthans or Nabatas are. Nabateans, Byleth corrects. They're two ancient species that went to war a long time ago. They hate each other, there's a huge conspiracy, historical revisionism, etc. Oh shit, Shay gawks. So we're, like, the descendants of that power or something like that. Something like that. Is Arvel the one that's been taking you over? No, Shay shakes his head. It's something else. I don't know why I can tell, but it is. I believe you, Byleth gives him a soft smile. When you're bound like that, your hearts are one. Suthes has never once attempted to take control over me like that. She's always been far too caring. Suthes? Like the goddess? Yes. Shay sighs, okay, let's say I believe you now about there being way more to this. Where do we go from here? How do we find Arvel? How do we get out of this place? Shay, Byleth frowns. Suthes went silent for me a long time ago. And now that we're here, I sense that other presence within you, Arvel, is no longer with us. Only the magic of the entity that's been hounding us. You're saying they're gone, aren't you? I'm sorry, Byleth looks down. This thing inside you has been growing stronger. It think it's completely replaced Arvel. New plan, Shay glowers. We kill that Sinuva bitch that's been after us both, then get out of here. On that, we agree, Byleth nods. This place is Zara's. It's different than I remember it being, but I can tell it's the same. That entity apparently had the power to send us here with a single sacrifice, even without being in the sealed forest. Every time you explain something, I just have more questions, Shay pouts. So you've been here before? That means you already know how to get us back, right? Maybe. A series of dark energy orbs crash into the grounds around them, obliterating the rock on which they stood. Byleth and Shay leap onto rocky footing below as the bombardment continues. While Shay leaps through the air, a being not unlike Arvel appears in a flash of gold and violet. He launches dark spikes at the purple-haired mercenary Midair, and though Shay deflects most, one pierces his side, and he careens into a boulder with a groan. Your fate is sealed, the entity calls. You cannot escape this place. Who the hell are you? Shay bites. That's too complex for your little mind to fathom. The being turns to Byleth. His garb shimmers white. An orange crown of energy protrudes from his forehead just as jagged orange wings of light jut out from his back. If you want to save this boy so badly, he begins, then I'll slaughter him in front of you. He launches a barrage of dark energy towards Shay. Byleth whips her blade through most of the orb projectiles while she lunges between them. The final blast of energy collides with her armor as she shields Shay from the attack. How cheeky, the entity smirks. Two enormous forearms plant themselves into the floor, cracking it, as Dimitri's distorted voice hisses. His fists and forearms are massive, though the rest of his arms are spindly. Similarly, his scaly charcoal torso is bulky, like a vast tree trunk, yet his legs are short and stocky. Scale tassels drape off his hunched back, much like a cape. His head is still frighteningly human and fleshy, though the right side of his face is covered in scabby hide, with a bulging black sclera. 3 jagged hide points jut upwards out of his forehead, creating an image akin to a crown. What the fuck kind of a demonic beast is that? Claude shouts. No clue. Edelgard calls back. Just focus on killing him. Edelgard, the Tempest Husk screams. Edelgard. His slams his immense limbs forward as the Flame Emperor lunges out of the way. Debris flies up as the entire floor trembles from the impact. Claude looses an arrow from Failnaught into the Husk's cheek. The energy bolt mars his flesh as he cries and swings his cumbersome fist towards Claude. The walkway easily flattens under his strength as Claude runs, though he stumbles as the ferocious vibrations cascade throughout the metal path. The Husk then grabs the catwalk and tears it from the wall. Claude sets himself against the railing as he fires into the Husk's bulbous eye. He drops the catwalk, allowing Claude to distance himself on the cafeteria floor. As the Tempest Husk rubs at his eye, Edelgard comes from behind and swings her axe through his right leg with all her might. The weapon cleaves through the limb as he tumbles, black blood spilling out. He catches his own vast weight with one arm and attempts to slap his other hand down atop Edelgard as she barely dashes out of the way. Edelgard. Edelgard, 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 Edelgard. The Husk repeatedly slaps the ground, causing the lights above them to shake and flicker. One light nearly falls on top of Claude, who sprints out of the way. He takes cover behind a pillar and shoots an arrow into the Husk's hunchback to little effect. Okay, we really need a plan, he shouts. I'm working on it, she bellows back, dodging under the swipe of the Husk's fist. I'm open to suggestions. The longer I knock an arrow, the stronger the shot becomes. Claude loudly explains. I don't know why, but your new buddy seems real fixated on you. Keep him distracted, and give me a clear shot to his head. Damn it, Edelgard seethes to herself as she scrapes her axe against the Husk's arm, leaving only a superficial cut. He swats her into the cement wall, leaving a crack. She pulls herself to her feet and glares at the monstrosity. Edelgard, he hisses. The Tempest Husk then awkwardly charges for her, limping on his stump leg. She bolts out of the way, letting him careen into the wall. His mass effortlessly pulverizes the thick cement. Though, a large crack swims up to the ceiling and drops debris down onto the Husk's head. He screams in rage from the anguish and rushes down Edelgard again. She runs to the side, however the Husk knows enough to stop himself before crashing into the other wall. Still, he stumbles from his inertia and lands on his side. Edelgard sprints by his legs while the Husk attempts to recover. She slashes through his other leg without losing momentum, sprinting towards Claude. The Husk staggers again before pulling himself up to his forearms. He rapidly drags himself towards Edelgard, heaving her name as he picks up speed. She runs back, leading him for Claude. Now, do it. Edelgard shouts to the top of her lungs. A bolt of blinding light launches from Failnaught and pierces through the Tempest Husk's forehead. The creature falls forward, his landing vibrates the room. However, he plants his hands on the floor, struggling to prop himself up. Edelgard and Claude gape at him as a hole smokes all the way through his head, and yet he still moves. Edelgard, he jeers again as he reaches for her. Edelgard veers around his arm, then bounds up towards his head and swings. Perish, the Flame Emperor thunders as she brings her axe down into his skull. She lands as the Tempest Husk fully collapses. His body disintegrates in a black haze, leaving behind Dimitri. Her stepbrother lies still, face on the ground. For the gods' sakes, Claude pants, please tell me that's it. It is done, Dimitri, Edelgard murmurs. I release you from your torment. You made a mistake, Byleth asserts. Now I can kill you. The entity chuckles, you're assuming I'm still as weak as I was whilst bound to flesh? Before you kill us, Shay weakly chuckles, gripping his injury, can you at least tell us your name? The entity hums, I suppose there's no harm in taking satisfaction from the Felstar learning my true identity before I kill it. He flourishes some magic in the air as if to prove a point. My name is Epimenides. I am the creator of Arvel, of the source of your power, Shay. Shay grimaces as Epimenides continues, my ambition is to snuff out the false light of the goddess and her children. To create paradise, Byleth interrupts. You truly believe the world you created is paradise? As close as it can be with human cockroaches scampering about. No world can be perfect, Epimenides sneers. Be glad that our kind took such pity on the creatures you love, Felstar. We did not extinguish them in your absence. So you're delusional, but what are you? Shay presses. I am the first Agarthan, also called the Light of Agartha, he explains. My wizardry surpasses all. Only the beast named Suthes was able to best me in direct singular combat. But now you represent only a fraction of her power. But how? Byleth shakes her head. How is any of this? How is any of this possible? How did I create this timeline? Epimenides smirks. You think there are only two other worlds, but there are infinitudes of realities variations on what you know as well as histories utterly unlike this world's. No matter which class you taught, Felstar, no matter how you taught, you and your little lordlings always destroyed the last of our kind. That cues the entrance of my unwitting vessel. The hell do I have anything to do with it? Shay derides. Why me? You were a stain on the Ashen Demon's boot, Epimenides scoffs. A small self-proclaimed rival company that was always slain by her hand in every timeline, he points to Byleth. I doubt you even remember killing the original version of him. But I interfered. I saved his poor excuse for a life to sunder you from your course to strip you of your rightful place in history. It even had the wondrous butterfly effect of downgrading both your mind and your body. You were less skilled, your connection to Suthes strained, your intelligence devolved from a tactical genius to a mindless crony merely following orders. Even with your weakened divine pulse, you were never smart enough to use it against Shay in a way that mattered. You had the power to manipulate time, and you squandered it in favor of simply hitting your foes, using your ability sparsely and without common sense. Byleth shakes her head, are you really so obsessed with the idea of winning at any cost that you can't understand that I was holding back? Regardless, it seems you were still unsatisfied with that world, so you changed history yet again. Epimenides sighs, unfortunately, Shay is, across all time, dim-witted. Despite the tragedies you graciously vested upon him, he still wished for you to join his cause. And even in the timelines in which you were foolish enough to allow him to kill you, he and the lordlings still destroyed Thales and Shambhala. It was necessary to alter events yet again. This time from the very beginning. Byleth's eyes widen, you were the one that made Nemesis defeat Ceros. Correct again. Epimenides chortles. I instructed my vessel at the time to flee from Ceros, avoiding his ill-fated battle with the beastly saint. Instead, he assisted Nemesis in his final bout against the putrid creature. I then bade him leave the credit solely to Nemesis, and of course, the brute emperor happily agreed to seize all the accolades of victory for himself. What even I fail to comprehend, his face twists as he glares at Byleth, is how you retained your power and your memories. Byleth answers, Suthies held power over time, much like you. I don't think you could get away with altering my history forever. Not without the divine pulse growing immune to your tampering. It matters not that you have this power, Epimenides upturns his nose. For the sake of this world, I will erase you clean from the pages of history. The Avesta launches dark spikes at the Ashen Empress. She bursts apart each spike with a swing of her sword. She then whips the blade towards Epimenides, who summons a shield against the attack. You made a mistake in bringing me here. Byleth bellows. I can destroy you once and for all now. Ha! Even if you could kill me, you are already eternally imprisoned in this plane. This is, after all, the darkness of Zaras. That doesn't matter, she retorts. You need to be stopped. Epimenides fires a series of pale magic beams in Byleth's direction. She dodges all of them, though she doesn't recognize the attack as any singular spell. She bounds towards the Avesta and swings the Creator Sword down towards him, and he shields himself with a light wall of cerulean energy. He then swipes his hand, and an explosion of violet magics rockets Byleth through a floating boulder and into a metal spire. She drops down onto a steel platform below. Epimenides instantly reappears in a flash. He detonates an omnidirectional eruption of magic, vaporizing the platform. Byleth shields herself with the Creator Sword, though some of the ebony armor on her legs are melted off. The blast itself sends Byleth soaring through the void yet again. She spirals until she corrects herself enough to whip her sword into a nearby rock formation, using her blade as a grapple to pull herself to solid ground. Epimenides again teleports beside her with an uncanny, smug sneer, ready with another attack. She grits. And he stops frozen with a white-violet aura. Is that the divine pulse? She seizes the opportunity to strike him full force. With a burst of white and orange, Epimenides flies through the rock at high speeds and craters into a stone crevice below. Byleth runs off the side of the rocky foothold, planting the Creator Sword into it, and swinging to the crevice below. By the time she lands, the Avesta is already gone. She scans around, then pauses. She whips her sword up just as Epimenides appears above her, slicing through his shoulder. Filthy upstart, he screams as he fires a storm of magic orbs into the chasm, filling the area with magic. As the stone explodes apart, smoke and dust cover the void. Epimenides darts around, trying to ascertain Byleth's location. Tell me, the Ashen Empress voice echoes off the curling smoke, do you believe in hell? She leaps out of the smoke to Epimenides' flank. He prepares for her sword strike, but she instead looses fire almost point blank. He hollers and swats away the flames from his face as she swings the Creator Sword into him. He crashes into the partially demolished chasm wall as she lands and sprints towards him. He attempts to warp away, but he is again frozen in a frame of shimmering white as she jumps and lands on top of him. She summons aura after aura, raining light magic on him again and again until her uses of the spell deplete. Then his flow of time resumes, and a mass of gold-white energy explodes out, built up from her spells. The vast blast incinerates nearly the whole crevice as Byleth lands on another platform and Epimenides hurtles down into the void. The Avesta teleports several meters in front of Byleth's platform. His gaudy white robes are charred and torn, his face bloody. He aims an arm towards the Empress, summoning a large swirl of dark energies into his palm. The cycle of this world, he screams, must be protected. Epimenides launches a series of dark orbs of energy targeted at Byleth. The Ashen Empress deflects or dodges every blast. However, the diverted attack blows apart the platform. She jumps from panel to panel as he summons Hades' Omega spells, erupting torrents of dark magic towards the Empress. She leaps between the blasts and bounds towards Epimenides. He summons Luna Lambda as dark magic swirls into the illusion of a moon. Byleth jabs the sword of the Creator forward, clashing against the spell and tearing through it. You want the power of gods, she barks as she plunges towards him. Here is something to believe in. Byleth's blade plunges through Epimenides' body. Yet, rather than bleed, a gaseous darkness seeps forth from the wound. His body goes slack as he glares up at her. At least, you're sealed here, he grunts, while the boar kills Edelgard. Solon. Solon will. Epimenides dissolves into darkness as he gasps. Byleth sighs in relief as she floats in the void. She angles her body to the direction of the nearest rock formation and blasts out fire in the opposite direction, launching herself at the foothold. It takes her several minutes to find Shay again, still clutching the injury in his side. "Oh good," he pants. "I thought you left me to die. If I was going to let you die, I would have just killed you at Faergus and avoided all of this," she responds. "Relax," he pushes himself to sit up with a groan, "I was just kidding. We need to get you out of here. I'm all ears if you have any idea how to do that," he says. "He said we were trapped here for eternity." "Yes, yes. And it would take a god to leave this place," Byleth shakes her head. She raises the sword of the Creator. "I hope this still works." The relic flares as she plunges it forward. The very blade tears against the invisible fabric of the void, filling the darkness with a blinding orange light. As Byleth struggles to cut the darkness, her hair raises and flickers between blue and green, her eyes temporarily matching the verdant hue in flashes. As the tear in Zara's grows, Byleth's vision darkens. Chapter 67, The Girl on the Throne. Shadows surround Byleth, save for a soft light haloing a statuesque dais and empty throne. A sight she recognizes far too well. How pathetic. One cannot simply cut through the very fabric of existence on a whim, a shrill voice echoes around her. Byleth's head darts around as she scans the darkness. The voice again speaks, this time from the throne. "Such an action is not to be taken lightly. Unless it was your desire to jeopardize reality itself," the voice scolds. Byleth looks to the source of the voice. Suthes lounges on the throne, leaning against her armrest. Her fist presses into her cheek as she rests her head against her arm. "Suthes!" Byleth excitedly calls. "How are you here?" The soul of a god is a hard thing to destroy. It would take the Queen's fang, but that is an irrelevant tale, Suthes sighs. "Did you not just hear my warning?" Byleth shakes her head. "It's not like I had a choice." Yes, I am aware. You allowed yourself to be sucked into the darkness of Zara's yet again. Honestly, what am I to do with such an arrogant child? Aren't you happy?" Byleth asks. "We destroyed Nemesis and the being responsible for all of this." "Of course I am relieved," Suthes retorts. "However, one cannot begin to describe the sensation of being displaced in time. Repeatedly. Or of being entrapped to Nemesis' side for a millennium. Though I was not fully aware, the feeling was ever present. It was as being sealed within a never-ending nightmare. I'm sorry you had to go through that." Byleth looks down. "Oh," Suthes' brow furrows, "do not give so sad an expression. You look akin to a wounded pup when you make that face. I suppose I should thank you for liberating me from the grasp of those cretins." "So, you have my gratitude." Byleth nods. "I really am glad to see you again." "You humans and your sentiments," Suthes huffs. "Must you turn every reunion into an emotional affair?" "Suthes, it's been so long since I've seen you." "I imagine it must have been from a human's perspective." Suthes sits up. "How are we here?" Byleth asks. "After you retrieved the Creator Sword, my remains, from Nemesis," Suthes explains, "our hearts drew closer together. Quite literally. You then tapped into every ounce of my power you could to drag yourself out of the darkness. Our souls are now reaching out to each other, though I know not how long this will last. Till you awake, I imagine. Yet, perhaps our minds will not remain as distant as they had been in recent years, now that you bear my relic. I cannot help but imagine it is so. What's that supposed to mean? I assume you will find out. Sooner or later," Suthes answers. "And what of Shay?" Byleth presses in concern. "Did he make it out with us?" "Ha!" Suthes barks. "Did he make it out with us? With the stunt you pulled, I'm surprised the half of Zara's didn't make it out with us." A plethora of boulders and Agarthan structures poured out from the tear you made before it finally closed. Such is what happens when a child goes about stabbing reality. But, to answer your question, yes. The boy escaped the darkness. However, I must warn you that your allies are not as keen on him as you. Bear you in mind that many of them regard him with suspicion. And rightfully so, he utilized Agarthan power to destroy many of your forces. Do you know where he is now? I cannot be certain, Suthis shakes her head. But I do know that you were both collected by your friends. He is likely in their custody. Then I have to find him, Byleth asserts. I suppose you will do as you please. As always, Suthis sighs. Byleth fidgets, will I see you again? Suthis smirks, that is a most interesting question. We will not cross paths in the future. I cannot say when or why. Can't say or won't say. Both are equally correct, Suthis chuckles. But for now, know that you are not yet finished with your tasks. There is much left for you to do. Go now. Stop oversleeping. As she speaks, the world around Byleth crumbles apart. She reaches her hand towards Suthis, only for the divine girl to give her a smile and wave as her throne shatters away to a white void. Everything gives way to the white as Byleth loses, or perhaps regains, consciousness. She opens her eyes. She lays in a bed, wearing only what's left of the black bodysuit she bears under her armor. She scans around, noting that she must be in some medical wing or another. To her side, Edelgard sits in a chair disheveled and sleeping. This must mean they are still in Bear Palace. She attempts to move, and that's when the aches set in, surging through her like an irate bullet train. She involuntarily groans, startling Edelgard awake. Byleth, the Flame Emperor softly gasps with a smile. Sorry, I didn't mean to rouse you. Please don't apologize, Edelgard chuckles. I am simply relieved to see you in good health. Relatively good health, that is. Byleth shakes her head, I'm sorry I wasn't there to help you fight Dimitri. Edelgard cocks her head, how in the name of the goddess did you know I fought Dimitri? For that matter, what happened to you? According to reports, you completely disappeared for some time, and when Mercedes showed me to your bed, your hair and eyes were green, but they faded back to their natural color some hours ago. Were you here all this time? Where else would I be? Edelgard tuts. Our forces need time to recuperate from the battle before we set our sights on our next objective. And I think we all need a well-deserved break. Forgive me, but that does not answer my questions. I fought a time-traveling wizard with interdimensional powers who possessed Shay and made this timeline, Byleth awkwardly answers. Edelgard rubs her face, why in the world do you end up in these situations? On the bright side, Byleth faintly grins, he killed Thales for us. Thank heavens, Edelgard sighs. I feared he escaped in all the chaos. Edelgard. Yes. Where's Shay? Byleth asks. The guards open the door to a maximum security cell, leading Edelgard and Byleth inward. Inside, Shay sits on a bed behind a barred enclosure. Cuffs restrain both his wrists and ankles. Oh, hey, he calls as he sees Byleth. Thanks for getting me out that, whatever it was. Byleth nods, I'm sorry they arrested you. Nah, it's fair, Shay shakes his head. The war literally just ended, and we were enemies for some time. At least they still feed me and let me go to the bathroom. I figured I should wait for you to wake up so we can talk this out. If I just broke out, then I'd be a fugitive for the rest of my life, and I don't really like the sound of that. Break out. Byleth cocks her head. Yeah, my powers aren't gone, so none of this can actually keep me in, Shay explains as the guards nervously squirm. You still have your power? Byleth asks. Even after we killed Epimenides. It's strange, right? Shay chuckles. The funny thing is, right as you killed Epipen, I could swear I heard Arvel's voice. They told me how much I'd grown and how proud they were. I think they had something to do with it. I can understand that, Byleth hums. More than you realize. Edelgard interrupts with a sigh, I can see where this is going with you too. Shay, it'll be a short while before we can organize things enough for me to lay a solid claim to the throne, but when I do, I promise to pardon you of your time working with the Empire. Between imperial propaganda and the possession of this wizard being, many of your actions were unduly influenced. Are you sure? He gawks. Edelgard grins, as long as you swear to more carefully consider your allies in the future, I see no problem in absolving you. No issues there, Shay nods. Then it's settled, Edelgard states. Now, let's get you out of this cell. You'll still have to be under our watch until I can formally pardon you, but you can at least stretch your legs. Byleth's head smacks against the pillow as she speaks in a muffled voice. Today was a long week. I concur, Edelgard sighs as she sits on the bed next to Byleth. Byleth looks up at her. I'm sure the royal chambers in the palace would be more comfortable than this simple bunk. Honestly, Edelgard chortles in fatigue, I'm going to have the whole royal chamber completely remodeled and disinfected before I ever sleep in the same room Nemesis used. That's fair. The amusing thing is, Edelgard smirks, as exhausted as I am, my mind races far too fast to sleep just yet. I know what you mean, Byleth turns on her back. Aegir, Thales, Nemesis, that wizard responsible for all of this all gone. All finally gone. It feels so very surreal. Yeah, Byleth laments, but we still have to solidify our rule and stamp out whatever Agarthans remain. Edelgard nods, yet, we will now have the advantages of being the military superpower, as well as your knowledge of what remains of their kind. Honestly, after everything we've been through, the rest sounds easy. I know that's probably horribly naive to say, but still. You know, Edelgard coyly grins, I can think of something we can do in celebration that will tire us both out enough to sleep. Byleth returns her smirk, I don't follow. I guess you'll just have to show me, the Blunet does slightly frown, but maybe show me on top. I'm still very sore. You're sore. Edelgard chuckles. I was slammed against cement walls and fought both Nemesis and Dimitri, who became a super demonic beast. And I fought 2 full-scale battles, was stabbed with magic swords, gashed with magic swords, exploded through several meter-thick rock formations, slammed against metal spires, basically fought 2 demigods, sent to a plane of oblivion, cut through reality itself, and blasted point-blank with magic explosions. Multiple times, Byleth responds. Fine. You win. I'll get on top. Chapter 68, Epilogue, The Color of Sunrise. Crimson rays sift through the pale clouds, reflecting off the blankets of white covering in Bear that morning. Less than 2 inches of snow covers the skyscrapers, the palace, the alleyways, and the cranes used for reconstruction. Claude admires his visible breath on the cold morning air as he and Hilda stroll into the palace, meander through the halls, and find the conference room. Nice of you to finally show up, Ingrid raises her brow in her seat. I was admiring the snow, Claude stretches. I'm still not used to Fodlan winters. I am having agreement, Petra smiles. Brigid beauty surpasses Fodlan greatly, but we are not having the same lovely snowfalls. Well, I, for one, am still focused on the task at hand, Lawrence jabs. Governor Gloucester is right, Ferdinand nods, we need to move forward with the meeting. You guys are all business, as usual, Claude huffs as he and Hilda take a seat. That is preferable to being all pleasure, Hubert digs. Enough, Edelgard resounds. The sooner we organize ourselves, the better. Our world needs firm, established leadership post-haste. Edelgard sits at one end of the conference table. Byleth sits to her right, and Hubert to her left. Monica stands off to the side, eager to fill any need of the future emperor. Ingrid, Lawrence, Sylvain, Irvin Berglis, Waldemar Hevering, Judith, Gwendol, Constance, Felix, Count Karen, and a short, middle-aged raven-haired countess named Beatrice Varley line the table. All parties are the only members able to make the first of these meetings on short notice. Beatrice adjusts the round glasses on the bridge of her nose, scrutinizing Hilda as she speaks. I assumed that it would be Duke Holst joining us for this conference. Hilda shakes her head. Yeah, he said that he had enough of political mumbo-jumbo, especially since the big shake-up. So he's leaving Goneril to me instead. To you. Beatrice cocks her head. Claude chuckles. Hilda may not look it, but she's extremely competent. She just likes faking otherwise. Claude, she shouts. Don't make them have ridiculous expectations of me. Relax, he winks. It'll only be until I ascend the throne, then either Edelgard or Lawrence will delegate a new leader for Goneril territory. After that, you'll just be Queen of Almira for the rest of your life. Can we please get back on track? Ingrid interjects. Yes. Constance cheers. I am eager for Edelgard, Lady Edelgard, to instate my rightful authority. Before I can do that, Edelgard huffs, we need to decide how positions of authority are even going to work in wake of the new Fodlan. Ferdinand nods. I have listened to your inclination to eventually abdicate your throne, Edelgard. As such, I find that I am actually quite grateful to merely be the interim governor of Adrestia. I propose that we start off this meeting by imposing similar limits to various positions of governance. Depending on the level of authority, of course. Judith scratches her chin. You mean to enforce standardized timeframes in which a person can rule? Correct, Hubert interjects. Ferdinand and I discussed this at length over the past week. We believe term limits are one of the best strategies to avoid a future Cornelia or Ludwig. Governors, and other assorted politicians, would no longer be able to simply seize and maintain power. Which, I believe, leads to one of Lady Edelgard's prominent reformations. Thank you, Hubert, Edelgard adds. As the rest of you no doubt know by now, I want the people to elect their leaders. No inheritance. No insurrections. No schemes. At least, no schemes that won't be greatly limited by the new law. People will rise or fall by their own merits. Not through their family names or teachery. Placing better focus on standardized education systems will significantly aid in this. Though, she grins at Ferdinand and Hubert, your suggestion on term limits sounds just as useful to that institution. It's a fantastic proposal that warrants further discussion. Ferdinand blushes. Oh, of course. I have been trained to excel, after all. Governor Galatea. Governor Gloucester, Edelgard continues, what say you to this? Ingrid beams, I think it's a fantastic idea. I concur, Lawrence nods. It will help prevent established leaders from becoming corrupt over the course of time. So then I don't have to do this forever, Felix grumbles. Thank goddess. That's all well and good, Claude folds his arms, but what about Fodlan's relationship with its neighboring countries going forward? How are you planning on relinquishing control over other parts of the world? Edelgard nods, an excellent point, but not a simple one. Would that we could simply pull imperial influence out of the other parts of the world on a whim. Unfortunately, imperial establishment goes back generations and will need the transitioning. What's more, a significant amount of military have all started families in other countries. We'll need to discuss how to stably rid the rest of the world of imperial colonization while minding the rights of these households. Afterwards, we will need to begin talks on finding replacements for Waldemar, Beatrice, Irvin, Karen, and Ro, among others. The Inber throne room is packed with politicians and civilians alike. All neatly bundle into rows kept under heavy watch as they look onto the coronation ceremony. The royal chamber has been renovated to exhibit more color, namely crimson and gold, as a long carpet stretches from the throne to the entryway. Scarlet flags hang, bearing the double-headed eagle of Adrestia, the insignia of the new empire. Mahogany wood and burgundy cushions constitute the now smaller throne. Large and newly installed windows grant the public a clear view of the evening snow as it coats the shimmering lights of the capital city. Edelgard kneels a few yards before the throne. She's dressed in silver, gold, and crimson ceremonial armor with her hair tied back into one long braid. Byleth stands by the side of the dais, dressed in a black military armor set with scarlet and gold accents. Both women are faced toward the throne with their backs turned to the audience. The three governors stand between them with a council of politicians presiding to the side. Ingrid, standing in the middle of the governors, steps forth holding a golden wreath crown. Edelgard von Hresvelg, she loudly enunciates, the United Council of the Empire of Fodlan summons you before the eyes of her people. We would name you first emperor. What say you? I meet the honor and the crown, Edelgard continues kneeling, and accept the title Edelgard von Hresvelg, Emperor of Fodlan. I take the privileges of the throne, the burdens of her people, and the responsibility of reigning unto my due time. Then all voices are in accord, Ingrid announces. She places the crown on Edelgard's head. Stand, Emperor Edelgard von Hresvelg, first of the new world. Edelgard then rises, gasping as Ingrid breaks form to hug her friend. The audience claps while the Black Eagles, Dorothea and Monica in particular, cheer as loudly as they can. "You'll do great," Ingrid murmurs with a smile. "Thank you, my friend," Edelgard nervously chuckles. Edelgard turns to the audience as the room hushes. She recalls a speech like many she has delivered before, promising a balance of power, a limit on military authority, a pledge of resources for those looking to rise through the ranks, peerage with neighboring nations, and above all, a changed Fodlan. After the coronation concludes, the crowd anxiously scatters to the festivities. Byleth quickly joins Edelgard's side, beaming, "You were absolutely wonderful, Elle." "Thank you," the newly christened emperor sighs in relief. "I was far more nervous than usual. I suppose that's because it all feels so real now. So final. Do not mistake me, I am aware that our work is not yet done, but I feel a sense of closure now." "I think we all feel that," Byleth grins. The pair of them join the festivities. They have fun, though Edelgard admittedly finds all the attention and congratulations exhausting. It seems nearly everyone she recognizes greets her at some point, from Mercedes and Monica, hand in hand, to Dida thanking her for assuring land and resources to help Duskur survivors rebuild their country. Petra teases her for having a far more audacious crown than Brigid Royals, and even Claude and Yuri muster up sincere words for her. Throughout all this, Edelgard keeps turning to Byleth by her side. The two of them continuously smile for one another as they participate in the celebrations. Neither woman is one to indulge in the accolades of public pomp, but their shared excitement over their triumph, as well as the clasped hands of their unity, preserve them through the night. Time mended. A fabric sewn back together. No longer hemorrhaging. No longer exposed naked. One world amongst infinities repaired at last. One firm reality. The way things are. The Emperor of Flame. The Empress of Ash by her side. Children of the Goddess avenged. Darkness dispelled. A world reborn in the flames of revolution. A scarlet dawn. Burning with change. Magic and technology both F. Chapter 69. Byleth walks amongst ruins. She recalls this dream. The azure beige stone mirrors the architecture of Xanadu. The sky above is still blue, but the sun seems more distant. The thick air makes it a bit more strenuous to breathe. She wanders under the gaping archways and desolate houses which she recognizes from the last time she was in this plane. She takes the dirt road to the edge of this locale, what she assumes is an ancient Nabatean village. She finds the ruined shrine at the top of the hill. Again, she only now realizes she dons her enlightened robes. The sense of emergency from last time returns, yet she still cannot move faster than a brisk walk. As she approaches the shrine, she contemplates why the construction matches Xanadu but the environment does not. Could this place be a lost village? Could the Nabateans have also lived in some remote part of the world that has yet to be discovered? Byleth arrives at the church. The inside still bears disintegrating ruins, sand and dust everywhere. The shattered tablet yet lays near the back wall. The script is unchanged. She wonders if her ability to read it comes from Suthi's memory. N, Nan, So, Ma, Me, all broken syllables speaking on an unknown subject. Or perhaps they're naming something. Yes, that sounds right. And finally, the number 12 again. Suddenly, Suthi's voice, distorted as though echoing through water, calls to her from the entrance of the church. Byleth turns in alarm. The diminutive goddess stands in the ruined doorway, staring, posture stiff. Her hazy voice rings out. "Find home." "Byleth," Edelgard coos, "are you all right? You were moaning in your sleep again." Byleth sits up in the bed of their royal chamber. Early morning light glows through their windows. The Emperor, as expected, is already nearly dressed for the day. "I had that strange dream again," the Blunit rubs her eye. "The one in the ruins." "I see," Edelgard nods. "Well, we can discuss that later. Since you're up, we've received summons from Hubert. He's found some important data stored in Inbare Library's collection. For our eyes only, he mentioned." Edelgard and Byleth follow Hubert as he leads them into a secret room in the palace library. The room is smaller than the Emperor and Empress would expect from the Agarthance. Shelves of ancient tomes line across one wall. A series of monitors line across the other. Hubert brings them to one particular console. Lady Edelgard, he bows, forgive my sense of urgency and secrecy, but we have stumbled upon some rather unsettling information in Thales data stores. This information was classified to the point that only he and his top advisor were allowed access. I dare say that it will change the very understanding of our world. Byleth interjects, I'm not sure what you're leading to, but I stole all the data from this library over 5 years ago. I didn't find anything that upsetting. Hubert squints. This data was collected merely 8 months ago. I doubt even you know the truth of it. Please, Hubert, Edelgard sighs. Get to the point. I apologize for my hesitancy, Hubert shakes his head, yet I cannot stress enough how much gravity this information bears. I simply want you both to be mentally prepared for it. Very well, Edelgard huffs. We're prepared. Now, I demand you show us. Right then, Hubert nods as he presses a button on the console. The monitor flicks on with a fuzzy aerial image of some ruins obscured by an azure haze. Ancient ruins, Edelgard hums. Are these Agarthan or Nabatean? Byleth's eyes widen as she gasps, I think I recognize that place. Or at least one similar from my dream. Really? Edelgard gawks. That is interesting, to say the least. Hubert stares at Byleth, you say you've had visions of this place? Are you certain? Byleth nods, yes. Hubert crosses his arms, then that is more than interesting. I'd claim that it's highly concerning. Where were these photographs taken? Edelgard asks. Hubert pauses briefly, contemplating his words, as you know, the Agarthans prioritized scientific advancements which elevated their power. Weaponry, psychological warfare, medicine when necessary, and so on. They expressed little interest in other fields they deemed irrelevant. It was up to the civilian sector to develop in those areas. I hope there's a point to this speech of yours, Edelgard frowns. Again, I apologize, Your Majesty, Hubert bows. Nonetheless, the purpose of my words is context. Within the last 3 years, a civilian engineering company from Faerghus collaborated with another company based in Leicester which specializes in crafting lenses of all sorts. They developed the first ever satellite designed for exploration. This satellite's data was eventually seized and classified above top secret by the previous government for unknown reasons, and the project's engineering staff was silenced one way or another. Edelgard scratches her chin, so these are satellite images then? Correct, Hubert answers. Of Nabatean ruins, as you had guessed. But again, Byleth scowls, where were these pictures taken? Hubert hesitates before answering. The Blue Sea Star. Check the description for the links to the author.